Mrs. Bouchard.
Thank you, everybody. Honorable Senators, I'm pleased to be with you today to discuss these important issues. I'm part of a growing group of physicians who come from a variety of backgrounds and walks of life. Our goal is to respect patient values while highlighting the importance of mutual freedoms of patients and physicians. We don't want to frame disagreements as rights competitions or even conflicts. Every day, conscientious physicians strive for solutions that lead to mutual respect, even if there are differences between what a physician might recommend based on professional and personal experience and what a patient might be looking for. I want to stress that the relationship of trust exists in such a way that the vast majority of situations that patients and physicians might disagree on never rises to the level of conflict. And it's in that light that I want to highlight that conscience protection is not primarily about protecting a physician himself or herself, but about protecting the therapeutic relationship of trust between the two of them. That trust exists when neither the physician nor fear consequences from their disagreements, but are supported to find new ways of caring. This is a creative process. It's a team approach and requires conscience protection for the physician-patient team. The patient first requires protection from coercion. A physician can't coerce a patient because of the power they have, and especially by bringing up things that the patient is not bringing to the table. For example, bringing up MAID unsolicited by the patient. Secondly, the physician requires protection from coercion. He or she must not be made to do something that in their judgment is harmful to patients. So protecting that physician-patient relationship of trust means that questions of access must not enter into the equation. Many politicians and ethicists and other observers are suggesting that an essential part of the physician-patient relationship is access, when in reality, access is something guaranteed by the provincial healthcare system. In 2018, Dr. Diane Kelsall, who's an editor at the Canadian Medical Association Journal, wrote that the responsibility to ensure access to MAID does not rest with the individual physician, but with society. She highlighted that the Ontario Ministry of Health established a care coordination service where patients and caregivers can request directly to be connected to a doctor or nurse practitioner who provides MAID. And yet, she mentions this ironically, the provincial college still requires physicians to provide a direct referral. How would it be possible for a physician in a small town to ensure access to MAID if he was not a MAID provider? And every intervener for this bill has agreed that no one should be compelled to provide MAID. Conversely, how could a physician ever be construed as obstructing access to MAID if the provinces have done their jobs to provide an accessible system that doesn't require a referral? Policies enforcing effective referral are solving a problem that doesn't exist, as Dr. Kelsall points out in her editorial. What I would highlight to you is that the patient-physician encounter has to be one of the safest places in society, what I would call, and many call, a medical home, as for me as a family doctor. Sometimes that safe place involves choosing a physician who is like-minded. And for that, we need to respect the diversity of views that Canadians hold. We need to feel at home with our physicians, and that means we have different types of homes for this pluralistic Canadian society we live in. I'm not naive to the fact that many of my patients might strongly be in favor of MAID, and in some circumstances, we may come to a disagreement. And maybe that means that I'm not a good fit for them as a physician, and in rare cases, that may involve a transfer of care to another colleague. But a transfer of care is different from a referral. In my experience, the vast majority of patients of mine, we can agree to disagree on many issues and continue to carry on that relationship of trust. I would say that this medical home is a place of creativity where we work together to improve their lives. And for me, that every suffering person is an opportunity to find new ways of caring. John Fletcher, another editor, at that time editor-in-chief of CMAJ when the MAID was being legalized, said, Canadian society may soon allow some doctors to redefine their role, but this should not compel the majority of physicians who are not comfortable with this to abandon their convictions. Even if the Supreme Court, Bill C-14 and now C-7 have exempted physicians and nurse practitioners from the crime of homicide when ending the lives of their patients, there are many of us who don't want to be included in the exemption. Our participation, including the form of arranging or referring for this legal service, would be an endorsement or recommendation of following through with MAID, which we can't do. Conscience, I would highlight, is not a matter of personal taste or preferences, but a deeply held conviction, which prevents us from sharing the will of somebody to pursue certain courses of action. Freedom of conscience is not the freedom to do what I want, but the freedom to do what I must. So I strongly urge you, dear senators, do not abandon us as we try to care creatively for our patients in the best ways we know. Don't abandon us as we try to defend our vulnerable and voiceless patients who are sometimes too afraid to speak up against discrimination. We won't abandon hope for our patients in a time of need, and I ask you not to forget us in protecting the relationship we have with our patients.